So welcome to all of you to this event, which aims to put the spotlight on activities on land, this land-to-sea continuum in order to protect oceans. We will hear today from different panelists. And first of all, I'd like to say a few words about the French Solid Waste Partnership, which I happen to have the leadership of. And we're coordinating this event today in support to the French Development Agency hosting us on this pavilion. The French Solid Waste Partnership is an association that regroups all stakeholders that work on solid waste management and resources, circular economy in France, but we carry their voice at international level. Our mission is to carry an advocacy to treat in a responsible manner all waste around the globe, and at the same time reduce the amount of waste that is generated globally. Today we'll have 4 parts to this event because we have some people who have agendas that have adjusted just now. We had to adjust a little bit compared to what was on the flyer and the event that had been distributed. We will start with a global perspective on waste management on land. What does it mean and what is implied by that? Then we will look at what happens when that waste is not well managed, how it is transferred to waterways and then oceans. And then we'll have a point on the Mediterranean basin before we focus on small island states. Some of our speakers are international, and this is why we are holding this event in English. And it's also a way to be more inclusive for our foreign guests who are visiting France for this event in UNOC. Now, I would like to introduce Alexandra Montero as our first speaker, who will give us an introductory keynote. Alexandra is a solid waste senior coordinator at the French Development Agency. So Alexandra, here is a microphone for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Corinne. So first of all, I would like to welcome all the participants, all the speakers, and the organizers of this side event, which are French Solid Waste Partnership, ADEME, Circular Earth, and IFT. The side event, as Corinne just explained to you, is focusing on the importance of the spotlight on the land to the sea, continuing to protect marine environmental from plastic pollution. Okay. Better? Okay. As we all are now aware, an enormous impact from plastic pollution has going to the ocean is known for the ocean, for the coastal areas, for biodiversity, for small islands, and in general for all the world. It's about 80% of the ocean pollution that it's composed by plastic. And it's about another 80% of plastics in the ocean that comes from the land. So currently, in a world scale, only less than 10% of the plastic produced is being recycled. And about a half of this plastic is being diverted into the environmental and into the oceans, pollutingly in a durable way, as we all know by seeing it, the impact, the visual impact that this pollution is being done. Each minute, it's about 50 tons of plastic that it's being dispersed into the ocean, which means that during this small introduction, it's about 75 tons of plastic that is being dispersed in this 5 minutes intervention into the ocean. So the impact is quite good. It's quite big, not good, but big. And from this mass, the only thing that it's visible, it's the high macroplastic that can be seen in the ocean. But there is an enormous part of pollution that is not seen. It's microplastics, nanoplastics, and this is much higher than the part of plastic that we can see, in fact, and it is well known by the pictures in the ocean. So the impact is much higher and much large that, in fact, we are generally known in a common way. If we continue as a business as usual way of proceed, in fact, this production and pollution will dramatically increase, causing even more damage to the ocean, but also to the world in a general way. And the financial investment that now is already required to implement measures to achieve a zero goal pollution in 2040, it's around 12,000 to 18,000 billions of dollars right now. However, the cost of inaction is much higher, even 13 times much higher, if we are not doing anything until 2040. So such an investment underscores the gravity of the situation and the scale of the intervention needed to mitigate the preservative effects of plastic pollution to the environmental. For plastic, as for other wastes, the priority is given for reducing their production, first of all, to promote reuse, recycling, and finally, final treatment that will be compliant with an environmentally sound management, as defined by the Basel Convention. It must be financed by a range of financial instruments involving both public but also private stakeholders. For the past 10 years, IFD Group, which I'm representing, is provided around 1 billion of euros of technical and financial support for household waste management projects involving plastics. So, and how do we do it? We support appropriated policy publics to reduce leakage of plastic waste into the environmental. We develop the raised of circular economy and waste treatments, appropriated waste treatments, and we promote a raising awareness raise around the communities and local partners. So to proceed to a zero waste pollution represents not only an ecological imperative, but also a profound economic opportunity. These environmental benefits is the solution that highlights the cost of its implementation. By strategically investing in sustainable practices and technologies, the global community can avert a crisis that the world otherwise imposes several costs to our ecosystems, economies, and future generations. So this side events will focus on the importance of establishing an environmentally sound and waste management system as a key to a circular economy transition. So enjoy the discussions, and thank you, Corinne.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexandra. We are now going to start the first part of our panel discussion. I would like to invite Pierre-Yves Poulican from Veolia, Sustainable Development Director for Veolia, and Dr. Mostafa Ahmed, technical lead. No, you stay here. Mostafa is technical lead for the International Solid Waste Association. And Alexandra Montero will stay here with us to speak in place of the representative of Togo who could not join us today, but Alexandra knows that project very well and will share her thoughts on it. So we just heard from Alexandra how urgent it is to take action to control the negative impacts of waste that is produced on land by both managing it in an environmentally sound manner and also reducing the volumes that are generated. We will hear now from our panelists about the complexities of actually implementing that wishful thinking, you know. It's not easier said than done, as many people say. So I'd like to start with Pierre-Yves Poulican. Veolia has recently worked on a dump site closure in Côte d'Ivoire, in the vicinity of Abidjan. Could you share with us your reflections based on that experience on how complex it is to make a project like this happen?
Thank you, Corinne. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Just to remind everyone that Veolia is an old company. We have been here in the system for 170 years. We deeply have depollution inside our DNA, inside our purpose. So it's not something new, and we are really dedicated to work on pollution on land to avoid pollution on sea, because it is one of the thematics we are going to develop today. On the example chosen by PFD, I will say that yes, we have the solution. Here you have some example of what's the situation in some country and what we have to face. So definitely you can see on the right part of the picture the situation before and then the situation after. So you can see the difference. We are here in Abidjan. Abidjan is near the sea, and you can imagine that any pollution you have in a dump site is going to go in the lagoon, and after the lagoon is going to go in the sea. So definitely we are at the beginning of the transformation of treating the waste, reducing the pollution. We in Europe, we are lucky enough to have other steps to follow. But here in Abidjan, it was very interesting to see that we are definitely the political wish to transform what I will call a nightmare situation in something which is reasonable. And you mentioned the complexity. So the complexity is not on the solution, because this solution is, I mean, the classic solution a company like Veolia can provide to the communities once there is a political will to move on. So we need to have the political will, we need to have the subsidy, the financing in place, and then we will have the transformation if possible, because what we see here, it's technically something we already have implemented elsewhere in the world and in Europe, by example. And then we transform completely the situation of the city, because what was a dump site, and you can imagine the buildings around the dump site, the poor quality of life. When you are lucky enough now to live with after rehabilitation, it's changing the life, it's changing the health condition of the people, and then of course it's improving the value of the land, and it's giving a political signal which is very positive. So for me, the complexity is more on the neighborhood, on the fact that we need to respect as well the people working on the informal sector, what we call the informal sector, because on the dump site there is poor people working as well. So we need to be able to provide them solutions for their work, because on one side they will lose their work because it's no more for them the solution to work on the dump. But we need to take this into consideration and to work with the politician, with the city, with the community to find solution on these people. And then we have, of course, showcases what could be the change. So we maybe can illustrate. Here you have some technical things. So lixivia, in English, it's a leachate. That's the water you have from the waste, and which is highly polluted. So you can treat it. That's what we do in Europe. You are not allowed to operate a landfill without this kind of operation. And more interesting is how you capture the carbon emission, because the waste is emitting a methane, and methane it's a dangerous GHG emission gas, as you know, but it is as well a source of energy you can valorize. So that's what we do in Europe, and that's what we propose here in Abidjan. And so here you have a kind of synthesis of what we can deliver. What is interesting is to value the external positive externalities, what we call avoided emission, and so on. So it's difficult to value the impact on health, because, but definitely there is a value on health. And what is very important in this kind of project, of course, you got the cost, which is the cost of the work and the transformation. But what is more difficult to value, it's the positive externalities, which is going to transform the life of the people of the surroundings, and health is one of the issues. Maybe Corinne, I leave you the floor.
Thank you very much for these insights on that specific project. Now we'd like to hear about another project in Togo. And oops, sorry, I went too fast. This is it. Alexandra, can you share how this regional sanitary landfill was made possible for?
Yes, for sure. In fact, the story of Lomé upgrading treatment is a long story that started in 2007 by supporting the city of Lomé in the upgrading the collection and the pre-collection. What we call pre-collection is the structuration or the collection made, the capture of waste made by the informal sector, in fact, around the area. We needed to know that the part that was targeted in this first support was a part related to the five areas of the city of Lomé, and not the district that will join the contract later. This first support, it was made because Lomé is a coastal city that it's located in the Gulf de Guinea area, which is one of the areas which is more impacted by the pollution of plastics and the pollution of ocean in a global way. So by addressing, they also had another issue. It was a problem of a lagunar, internal lagunar system that is connected directly to the ocean, and where the wastes were being disposed around. I'm looking to Nicolas that know very well this project also, was disposed around and being dispersed into this lagunar system and into the ocean itself. So the pollution was quite high, and the town was facing a large deficits of and problems of inundations related to the fact that wastes were compacting, were closing the systems and the drainage systems themselves and saturating all the environmental around. So to address that, the municipality of Lomé asked IFD to support them on the improvement of the lagunar system and on the waste collection, where at that moment it was just 35% of the waste produced in the town that is being collected. So this is the first Lomé project, which was an 8 million grant from IFD. I look to the figures, but I think it's that, about that. 8 million grant from IFD, and that has been developed for 7 years. It also included, it also included the fact that was a support, a technical and financial support that has been given to the municipalities and the partners in order to raise up their technical and financial abilities to deal with the system. The second part, when the collection was made, where are we going to put the wastes? In fact, there was several dump sites. I'm not calling them landfills, but dump sites in the area. So to avoid this situation, IFD with the European Union and with the West Development African Bank raised financial support on a grant basis of 21.5 million in 2011 that was meant to create a treatment. So the treatment started to be a simple one by creating a sanitary landfill with the treatment of leachate, like it was explained by Pierre-Yves, with the impermeabilization and the compactation and the dressing up of all the system, and also to support some initiatives with composting and with recycling, but very located project pilots. This project, the landfill started operating in 2018, and when the landfill started to operate, the major dump site, control landfill of Lomé was not being used and needed to be closed because it was having some environmental impacts, quite a big environmental impacts. So the third support that was given in 2021, so we are now in more than 10 years of support, the third support in 2021 was to help to close up in an environmental sound way this dump site, and also to continue sustainable awareness raising sensibility campaigns, support to the counterpart, and also to, and I will become therefore a little bit later, to address the financial and institutional issues that was a target for the sanitary landfill that it is part of a private public-private partnership that I will address a little bit later. And then to go on to very quickly, now we are in the fourth phase of support. Now it's a loan of 15 million from IFD directly that it's supporting all the institutional aspects, and that is supporting the development of circular economy, the capture of biogas, because biogas from waste is not being produced as the very first ton that we dispose. It's a lapse of time before carbon, before carbon and methane is going to be produced and dispersed, and then to be finished. To include the construction of the second cell. So how it was made the second? Yeah, I'll go ahead, speed up.
Yeah, maybe.
How it was, just quickly, for the private partnership. How it was made. In fact, IFD supported the counterpart, the public counterpart, so the municipality, the district of Lomé, on the financement of the capex and on the addressing all the issues in order that the municipality will be able to pay back the tons to the operator. The operator, which is a French company, IFIs, with Paprec Group, was in charge of the operation, the construction, the operation, and the awareness raised of a local partner that has been in charge of the day-to-day operation. This part of agreement and the fact that IFD developed more than 17 years of support to Lomé has addressed part of the risk for the private partner to go there. So in fact, this project captured most of the wastes in the Lomé city, now is addressing the rest of the area, and avoid all the waste, including plastics, to continue to create environmental problems in Lomé. I will stay there, I think it's enough.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for sharing how much of a long-term project it is to actually change from open dump sites to actually a structured waste management system. So it's something that we need to start investing in as soon as possible so that these systems are put in place. But we also talked about the fact that it is an investment, so it has a cost. And I'd like to ask Dr. Mustafa Ahmed to share a few thoughts in regards to this in connection with the findings that were published last year in the Global Waste Management Outlook 2024. So, Mustafa, the floor is yours. Maybe you want to say a few words on ISWA because not so many people know about that ISWA here.
Thank you very much, Corinne, for this introduction. So I work for ISWA, the International Solid Waste Association, which is a global network with a... Ah, now it's better? Great. Which is a global network for solid waste with a mission to promote and develop sustainable waste management practices and to support the transition to circular economy. So yeah, we can... So as a waste management association, and also as highlighted in the Global Waste Management Outlook, I was just saying that we see waste is a key player in the triple planetary crisis. With this, we see that there are, from what is happening now, we see that we have three possible scenarios for waste management. The one that is business stays as usual with the current waste management practices, where we are in a linear economy of produce, consume, and dispose. And we expect if we stay like this, that the waste amounts generated globally will almost triple by 2050. So if we stay with the current scenario with business as usual, we can see that waste collection and recycling will stay the same. We will still have uncontrolled disposal, and it stays the same. If we go to more moderate progress and we start to have some control in our waste management, by 2050 we can reach 100% waste collection, and then we can also have zero uncontrolled disposal. But then we need more. So if we go to the circular economy scenario, where we can have 100% collection, but also 60% of the waste collected being recycled, then we can actually have a big change in the waste management, and then we are in a circular economy. So we have three scenarios, and that we need to choose one of them where to go. And then if we look at these three scenarios with an environmental lens, just with greenhouse gas emissions as an example, we can see that with the business as usual, the emissions keeps increasing steadily, but then with some controls, it starts to decrease, but then we have the significant decrease in the emissions, significant reduction with the circular economy option. And that's how we can shift waste management from a climate threat to a climate solution. But then if we go to an economic lens, so we can see that at the moment, the current net cost for waste management is around 360 billion US dollars. But if we break this down a little bit, so it's 250 billion that is direct cost for the waste management. And then we have 240 costs for externalities or the cost of environmental degradation. And then we have 130 billion that are gains of recycling. And if we put this together, we reach the net cost of 360 billion US dollars. So if we keep doing what we are doing, this would reach 640 billions by 2050. If we introduce more controls, then it's going to be around 250. But then if we actually go to the circular economy, then we can shift this from cost to net gains. And then we have the three options that we can use, and then we usually overlook the cost of the environmental degradation, which consumes a lot, and it's usually borne by the society. So the cost of inaction is actually way more than the cost of action, and that's why the future costs less if we start now.
So thank you very much, Mustafa. Can you maybe explain to us a bit more what you have in mind with that circular scenario?
Sure. So to start with the circular scenario, we can start with the waste management hierarchy, which is a practical roadmap for improving waste management that prioritizes prevention, reuse, and recycling over recovery and disposal. So the easy step to go for circularity is just to start climbing up this pyramid from where we are standing. But then we have to keep in mind that the waste management hierarchy or the circularity is not, there's no one size fits all solution. So we have to keep in mind that circularity or improving waste management comes as a tool, as a toolbox, not a template. So we need to find what fits us, and then we also need to bring solutions that matches realities. So it fits with the local context where we're going to be implemented. And then the last thing is that we need to start upstream before looking downstream. So we need to put equal importance on the eco design as much as we put on the waste management. And we think that it's important to focus on plastics because plastics is one of the waste streams that is increasing rapidly. So with business as usual, the plastic production will be constantly increasing for until 2060 that we have in the graph. And 1/3 of this plastic being produced is actually packaging with the shortest lifespan. So this mostly goes to waste. And then we have 22% of this plastic waste being produced that is mismanaged or leaks to the environment officially, but we also have 50% that is going to disposal sites that could be sometimes dump sites or controlled landfills. There are different shades of disposal sites that we can include. And then we have, at the moment, 6% of the plastic is circular. That means that it's byproducts, that it's going to the new production of new plastics. And there's plans to this 6% to increase to 12% by 2060. But is that enough? We can see here that we have targets for increasing recycling, for increasing circularity, but the waste management is also, the waste generation is also increasing of plastics. So if we increase from 6 to 12% with the circularity plans or targets, if we go with business as usual at the moment, we actually have double the amount of waste being disposed or leaking to the environment or mismanaged in many different ways. So the other thing with plastics is that now while it's leaking to the environment, then it's in a form of macroplastics. So it's big objects like plastic bags, plastic bottles, or such things. But then by the time they spend in the water, they start to fragment into microplastics as items of less than 5 millimeters of diameter particle size. And then it's really difficult to manage the microplastics. So we need to act now before it starts to fragment. And 87% of the plastic leaking to the environment is actually macroplastic. So we have a great potential to improve the plastic pollution in oceans and in waters before it starts to fragment. So, as I was saying, the clock is ticking on the plastic pollution. This also follows with the approach we have for the clock approach or the clock project, which is clean oceans through clean communities. And this is a project we are doing where we start to co-develop waste management plans and co-design systems with local communities. And we are doing this now at the moment in India and in Indonesia, and we have developed so far waste management plans for 7.2 million in these two countries, where we co-develop with the local stakeholders and all the people involved there, including informal sector, formal sector, and so on. And then we also have at ISWA the Plastic Treaty Task Force, where we are working towards the plastic treaty negotiations. I think you are aware of that, so I will not spend time on it. So there is a UN is trying to do a global plastic treaty, and we are trying to advocate for have a life cycle based treaty that considers the whole life cycle of the plastics. And for that we have 5 key messages that we do, and this is what we can follow for circularity in plastic. So the first thing is to reduce plastic waste, and that includes the eco design. It's not only looking at it when it's waste. And then the second thing is to collect all waste with a focus on plastic, but we need to collect all waste, so we need to reach the 100% collection. And then we need to start to upgrade the disposal sites and to stop open burning of waste and stop open dumping. And then to do all of this, we are increasing costs of waste management, so we need to extend the responsibility to the producers of the waste, the actual polluters. And then finally, to offer customized solutions to different socioeconomic contexts. So we don't go with one-size-fits-all solutions.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. for sharing this work that ISWA is doing and really supporting this whole sector through their actions. Maybe one final word from Pierre-Yves and Alexandra on that transition to circularity, to the circular scenario.
Thank you all. Just to tell you what we give example here about circular economy around waste and plastic. It was the study case. For those who are interested, you can find here, it's a brochure from Entreprise pour l'Environnement. So it's 60 large companies working on environment, promoting all these questions between land and ocean. It's a brochure we publish at the occasion of the UNOC Congress. Because behind this question of plastic and waste, you have a lot of solution, and you have a lot of initiative pushed by the different big corporations. You have a solution hub as well pushed by startup. So both large company and startup are pushing innovative solutions. And so we are very comfortable with the fact that if we implement this solution, we'll find a way to solve this issue. Alexandra?
Yes. Thank you so much. I would just say one point. Let's be a little bit, realistic to the global way of waste on the earth. About more than a half, even 2/3 of the world doesn't have the economy and the awareness and the organization necessary to implement it right away, a solution. Plus, plastic, in terms of what we call plastic, is more than 60,000 types of material. In fact, it's 4,000 types of material, plus additives, plus all the components, plus all the things, and each one to be reused, recycled, reintegrated needs an appropriate treatment. So it's costly. Okay. So the first of all, we need, and that's the target of the treaty, of the treaty against plastic pollution. We need to reduce the production of plastic. As it was said, more than 1/3 of those plastics, and especially about 80% of the plastic that finds quickly in the environment, is related to packaging and to very short lifetime, single-use lifetime plastic. If we adapt that already, we are already reducing. If we're making plastic bans, if we're making policy, public policy, if we're making structuration, we are already addressing the subject. That's one of the points. The second point, we need to raise awareness in order to that the people will change consumption, people will be advised how to address that target. The third point, it's the private companies and industry that will need to develop eco-concepts in order to have a more easy recyclable products to be integrated into the system. That is for the future. And for the situation now, we need to continue to address waste management, to address treatment in a way that it's adapted to the country. And what we are doing in Europe, it's perfect, but Europe is treating waste for more than 30 years and even more, and the organization is already there. In most of the countries, we have 35%, like it was the case of Lomé, of collection in the very first beginning. So we need to start from the basis to grow up to the rest. So the pyramid, even if it is what we should do, in a lot of countries, we needed to take the reverse pyramid in an inverse way, in fact. So it's a complicated issue, but let's be positive, not possible. Let's be positive. It's important to address the situation, because otherwise we will have facing an environmental and a pollution that will finish by end all of us, to be clear. Not being dramatic, but a little bit nevertheless. So I just say that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all our three panelists. A big handshake for our applause for our panelists. We need to treat the waste that exists. It's an imperative to protect the environment while we also transition to this circular economy. This is the vision, but the action now is to make sure we treat the waste that exists. Thank you. I would like now to invite Philippe Massé, who is seating in the back. He is the Director of International Affairs of ADEME, the French agency for the ecological transition. ADEME is supporting a network that Philippe will share a few words on.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Philippe Massé. I'm Director for International and European Affairs in ADEME, the French agency for ecological transition. And we have launched in 2024 an initiative called circemed.org. These initiatives concern to launch a network of each entities concerned by circular economy around the Mediterranean Sea. You have entities, public entities like agencies, public agencies, you have NGOs, you have enterprises, you have also collectivities, local authorities, which launch every day projects to fight against pollution, to make sure that the circular economy adapted in each concept, in each context, national context, will be implementing very well and run very well in order to bring solutions on the ground. And the thing is that we want to create a sort of common interest around the Mediterranean Sea in order to put together all the solutions concerning circular economy and notably in the plastic pollution in order to disseminate, replicate, to massify all these solutions around the Mediterranean Sea. And of course, we need to provide concrete solutions to this network. We have the support of different Ministry of Environment. We have the support of international entities and financial institutions in order to make sure that this CIRCEMED, this network for circular economy in Mediterranean countries, could be a success to put together, to share all these solutions concerning the plastic solutions in order to reach the objectives of this international treaty on plastic pollutions, and of course to make sure that the Mediterranean countries could be the first one in the application of this treaty in the future. And of course, if somebody in the room are available tomorrow afternoon in Blue Zone, we have a special announcement, political announcement of this network by two ministers, one for Egypt, one for France, in order to make a sort of knowledge, political knowledge of this network for the Mediterranean countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have time for one quick question, if anybody has a question. And otherwise, we'll start with the next roundtable. I have to be... Okay, one question here.
Hello, Stéphanie Touram, association Carbone Bleu. Alors, je connais la responsabilité élargie du producteur, la REP. Et lors d'un voyage en Guyane, je me suis demandé pourquoi il n'existait pas la responsabilité élargie des transporteurs. Puisqu'en fait, on a des cargos qui amènent des tas de denrées. Et pourquoi ne ramènent-elles pas, pourquoi ces containers ne ramènent-ils pas les déchets, puisqu'on sait que dans certains lieux, il n'y a pas de station de traitement. On m'a entendu ou pas? Donc voilà, là, une responsabilité élargie du transporteur.
So the question was on the EPR, the extended producer responsibility of transporters and not only of producers. It is a very good question, and it is probably something we should start working on. I do not believe it already exists, and just for your knowledge, working on producers' responsibility is already a huge challenge, but we should also tackle that challenge of the transporter responsibility. So thank you for asking that question. We will now transition to the next roundtable. Thank you very much, Philippe. A big hand of applause for. I would like now to invite Eric Tardieu, who is the director of or actually General Secretary of the International Network of Basin Organizations, and Mrs. Busadi Santipicas, the Chief Executive Officer of the Secretariat of the Mekong River Commission. I will now give you a microphone, and if you can speak with this one turned to you, that will be a better sound. Thank you. Tu peux t'asseoir là et tu peux passer tes slides. Comme ça, tu les passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Corinne. I suppose that you can hear me well. Just take your hands. Yes? Okay, thank you for this first reaction. My role today is to briefly introduce the content of what we call a handbook that was published last year for the World Water Forum that took place in Bali. And we will then have not a dialogue, but another presentation with the case of the Mekong River Commission. This handbook was, of course, about transfer of waste and plastics in aquatic environment. Your session has been addressing the general issues of waste, and now how do we deal with these solid wastes, plastic wastes, in the aquatic environments. This is what the handbook is about, with a series of recommendations and also case studies. So this is, you can, download it, it's free. And it has been published in collaboration with the French Solid Waste Partnership, the International Solid Waste Association, and AFD. Let me skip this one to really briefly introduce the general structure of the handbook. The first part is to better understand how waste enters the aquatic environment and are transported, and how to characterize them. For the specialists of solid waste, this is not a question, but for the water practitioners, this is something important to get acculturate. Part 2, plastics, from their regeneration to their journey to inside aquatic environment. This is something really important because plastics are very important, a majority part of the wastes that we have in our water bodies. Part 3, how to prevent waste to pollute the water bodies, and especially at the basin scale. So you can find in the handbook case studies. There is a list here that you can probably not see very well, but this is an encouragement to download the handbook. We've tried to consider different geographies, different scales of river basins, and different solutions that were studied. So very briefly, as you can see here, waste, of course, in water bodies come from the land, and there is a continuity between land, water, and of course oceans, and that's the reason so why we are here today. And rubbish can be abandoned on the banks, uncontrolled dumps happen in everywhere. Former waste dumps can continue to have consequences on the water bodies. Urban drainage systems usually also drain waste into the rivers, and accumulation on urban surfaces of waste can, of course, be transferred onto the rivers. Hydrological factors have an influence, geomorphological factors, of course, and physical factors, all what describes the operations, the functions of the river itself. And of course, it is aggravated by the extreme events. You can find examples of collection techniques in the handbook. I don't have time to describe them. There is also an attempt of characterizing plastic wastes. They can vary in sizes, and as you know, they can be found in all compartments of the aquatic ecosystems and also of the human beings, including the consequences on health. And we've tried to describe very briefly the impacts of macrorates on not only biodiversity, all types of living beings, but also on human beings, of course. So the idea, of course, is to find solutions to prevent these waste to being transferred into waterways. So, of course, reduce waste production at the source is a very key aspect that is studied. Avoid storing wastes close to water bodies is obviously another solution. That's the reason why the organization of the and the treatment of waste is so important also from the perspective of water bodies and water pollution. It is important to work at the international scale. This is very humbly what we've done with this handbook supported by AFD. And the idea is really that we need stronger regulatory frameworks, very important. We need territorial networks of infrastructures to allow waste to be collected and treated before they enter the aquatic ecosystems. It is important to raise public awareness. This is the case for all types of water-related pollutions, but for now this is about solid waste and plastic waste. And we need really to organize coherence at the territorial level, coherence between territorial public policies that need really to be coordinated, water resources management policies, but also solid waste policies. Most of the macro waste found in the water bodies come from plastics, different types of plastics, and it is, as you know, very persistent in the environment. It transforms into micro, into nanoplastics, all sizes of pollutants, and of course they have impacts on the environment and on humans. So we need to better identify the sources and the transfer routes. We need to better quantify and characterize the flows and to have a good understanding of public waste management policies in order to prevent waste to being transferred into waterways. Reduction at the source and setting up waste management systems. Thank you for your attention. And so we go directly, or you want to make this transition?
No, actually, I will let you manage this.
Okay.
And now we'll hear about the case of the Mekong River Delta.
Yes, exactly. One of the very important case studies that you can find in details in the handbook. And we are very honored today to have with us the Chief Executive Officer of the Mekong River Commission. And I'm handing the floor
You just have
very
to pass
closely.
the microphone.
Yeah, and not only the floor, but literally speaking, the mic for the presentation of this case study. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, maybe you can sit in the middle. That
Yeah, I
way
think it's better.
I can also hear you
All right.
better.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and on this very important topic. I hope to be able to explain to you the one example in the publication that INBO and the partners kindly published last year, and that we were very pleased to share some of the findings. It's in its early stages, but we do realize the importance of plastic pollutions in the rivers as a link to the land and to the sea and the oceans, which is a very important topic in this conference. In that regard, let me just give you some information about how Mekong River contributes about 17.4 tons per per day and 101 tons per day of plastic debris into the ocean, which is the 10th largest amount contributed by rivers globally based on the study. So that means that because of the Mekong, it's one of the top 10 polluters. But out of that, we do realize that 80 to 95% of these pollution also enters into the sea out of these 10 rivers. So what did we do? We were approached by UNEP, the Countermeasure 2 project, and we did these studies in 2 years, 22, 23, and we were able to publish protocols relating to these findings in 2024. So the surveys, the work that we did on plastic waste pollution in the lower Mekong Basin, of course, it's riverine macroplastics, riverine microplastics, plastic leakage hotspots, plastic accumulation hotspots, and of these are based on methodologies and samplings by the experts and technical people. And we were lucky. We had the support from the Japanese government to conduct the studies on these frameworks. And of course, as you know, the members of the Lower Mekong Basin, it's Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam. And the MRC Commission is based in Vientiane, Laos PDR. So the status of the findings of that, the plastic pollution in rivers across, were assessed. We needed that information. If not, we don't have that information. We can't continue the projects. This would not allow us to make better decision making for the governments, which is an integral part to have this effective management and solution of this issue. So out of these, the studies that we have done, the institutional frameworks and capacities of each members were involved, but we do realize that we have to continuously involve them to address the matters effectively. With the explanation, so we had to do out a work plan to realize the importance of this issue, the challenges that require regional cooperation to overcome at various levels, as you will see. So these were some of the findings, example of plastic debris distribution in the Mekong River, and you will see the large part of types of macroplastics and microplastics, and the quick comparison of amount of plastic debris that has been found. And of course, you will see a large part of PE and PET and the various these microplastics into the river, which is of course an health impacts on the health as well. So you see the number of both the types of products of macroplastics and the types of products in the artificial barriers. And results, you will see that we did samples, studies. In Laos PDR, for example, 265 pieces were found in 7 locations. And was basically in Vientiane capital. In Cambodia, 37,470 pieces and 18 locations, of course, in Phnom Penh and in Thailand and Vietnam. And of course, to reiterate the importance of this, 2 out of the 4 countries are in the top 10 tier when you talk about plastic pollution into the ocean, which is in Southeast Asia. Of course, the conclusions out of those findings and studies, you will find that we continue to monitor situations, but monitoring is not enough. Monitoring is not enough. You have to mobilize the governments, the people, the different stakeholders to have the same shared goals. And this is also a very important part. The goals are there, but how do we achieve it? I think it's very important in the details. So we realized out of this sampling, this study, that there has been a lack of specific policy framework on riverine debris management or monitoring. So it's a bit ambiguous who does what and who will do it, under which framework, who will guide the policies. So this is where the MRC tries with its partners to introduce these ideas, and hopefully it has to be done continuously through work engagement and responsibilities. There is limited capacity of riverine plastic debris monitoring available. That means the expertise, the knowledge, the know-how, the people who understand the situation of how it links between plastics in rivers and how it contributes to the larger picture of oceans, which we worsened over the years. And thirdly, the regular monitoring activities by concerned agencies in each member country, there's still a lack of that. When you talk about local, state, provincial, regional, in each country, there is no systematic administrative structure. So I think this is what we found out, but we have to not only create awareness, but how do we systematize it into the processes, the work plans, and the policies at various levels. So data becomes very essential in this regard. So the samples, the studies that we did in 22-23 out of the UNEP support was basically maybe just one water in the drop of the river, but it has to be built on. So this, I think we have to do this together. And actions that we have taken since then, of course, I mentioned about the studies that we did, the detailed methodology. How do we do it? Traditionally, long-term, cost-effective monitoring, technical financial support in the 2 years. We developed 3 protocols. You can download them from the links at the end of this presentation. We found out that we do need, as I mentioned, strengthen capacity of member countries. We had additional support from the GIZ of Germany. We need to do a procurement and set up the field labs, equipment analysis, national, regional, hands-on field laboratory trainings. It may not be an issue for you in the developed world, but it is an issue for us in the developing countries that we do need these tools and trainings. The protocols here are, of course, we are doing this. We are mainstreaming it into our work at the MRC, which which monitor water flows, water quality. So we're doing this in the plan of action here in 2025, Water Quality Monitoring Network, and we will have an expanded core river monitoring network by 2027. This will again be included in this plan. And of course, challenges and opportunities, I think I sort of mentioned that in my presentation, because it's all about human acts, one part, communities, awareness, the extent of how do we create that awareness. I like these youth activities that are around in the conference. I think we have to engage them more at various levels to become a habit. How do we not use plastics? Can we resort to other biodegradable matters or means, to ensure that it lessens the impact of these issues. We need long-term funding, as I mentioned. It's a complex issue. It's not only about knowledge sharing, but it's also about trying to find the right expertise and a balance between understanding how the important issues are. The projects on plastic pollution are still relatively low. So again, regular updates, knowledge, continued findings, and improved methods of working, I think is very important. And last of all, I mentioned in all my presentations about collaboration. Countries in the Mekong region, we cannot do it on ourselves. We need to work with other partners who have gone through this experience. But at the same time, I think we also have to take on the responsibilities ourselves to ensure that the respective agencies and governments understand the complexity of these issues and mainstream it in other parts, stakeholders, community, CSOs, and other academia and organizations. So this becomes the right time for opportunities for collaboration, and I hope the publication will also introduce and a wake-up call for us to collaborate better for those who have experience in the field, for all the citizens. They share concerns, and we have a strong willingness. We have to have some sort of guidance and cooperation in this regard to tackle this issue. So we will continue to work with UNEP, CT Alliance, INBO, GIZ, and of course, and we also will work with the big ocean cleanup. I think efforts in this regard. We will have to do it continuously but vigorously. So this provides the opportunities for collaboration across sectors as it impacts on water, on food, on health, security, but the importance of integrating water resources management, I think it's very important to take into account the impact that plastics, riverine plastic pollution can impact on us and how that feeds into the larger picture that we all are working on is on the sustainable management and development, not only of rivers, but of oceans. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We don't have a lot of time, but if we have a burning question from the audience, I will take it. It really showed us how that problem that we talked earlier on the session about waste management and the mismanagement of waste becomes a transboundary issue in the case of the Mekong Delta that requires really extensive collaboration, and it becomes an even more complex problem to solve. So let's take action upstream as much as we can so that we minimize that problem once it reaches the rivers. Thank you very much. Axel Daru will now moderate the next part of the panel.
Thanks a lot. So we've got Carla, Susanna, Nicola, Tiana, and Nicola as well. And I'm gonna ask you to really be right on time, to get straight to the point with your key points in order to have as well a call for actions for the Island territories. And I'm gonna start with Carla, with a general question as well for you guys to start with. And Carla, I would like to ask you what are the most pressing challenges for island territories from your perspective, from Common Seas?
Thanks, Axel. Is that okay? Can everyone hear me? Yes? Good. So I know you told me to be straight to the point, but before going right to that, I just wanted to say also that for us, it's a real privilege to be able to work with small island developing states. They are a really special group of countries that are really disproportionately affected by the plastic pollution crisis, and yet they contribute very little to it. But at the same time, SIDS, the Small Island Developing States, they're stewards of nearly 30% of our ocean, so really impactful and important players on the world stage. So yes, of course, waste management is a big challenge for the small island states that we work with, but at the same time, I think what sticks out for us is really the ambition that they're taking to tackle these challenges head on. A lot of the Pacific Island states, for example, are members of the High Ambition Coalition to End Plastic Pollution, and several SIDS that we work with already have very ambitious policies in place to curb pollution right at the top of the upstream. So bans, import taxes, these kind of things. And these interventions are really necessary because the land to sea continuum on an island context is really quite short. It's very small, and there's very limited land space on islands, and so of course this means that there's very limited landfill space too. So there's just simply no room for the kind of continued business as usual as it is right now. So our approach at Common Seas, how we support small island states to tackle or face these challenges head on, firstly is to try to help build a clear picture of the problem. And data is a problem in any country, but I think especially so the case for small island states. And so we try to help our government partners by establishing a national baseline, trying to understand what kind of plastic is used, what kind of plastic, where it comes from, and also then importantly, what types of plastics are leaking and where is it leaking to. So once we do this, we try to then model the impact of different interventions on this baseline and work together with our partners to co-develop national plans to stop the plastic pollution. So I think through this work, one thing to answer your question, one of the biggest challenges that we've faced is that oftentimes the collected waste on islands, there just isn't anywhere for it to go. And this is because often there's not enough volume of waste on islands produced to justify the costs needed, the investments needed to develop local recycling infrastructure. And so that's a key challenge. And then also finding markets for this waste outside of the islands is just as challenging because exporting that waste is extremely costly. So the result is that even very well-designed and well-functioning systems often dead end in terms of what to do with the waste. So I think from our perspective at Common Seas, that's one of the key challenges we're encountering.
So just to give a little perspective of my field of vision and how I see things, I represent an organization, an intergovernmental organization called the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. We have 12 members, and these are small island countries and territories. So we as an organization focus on regional integration, and we were established back in 1981 under the Treaty of Bastia, which has been revised since. But that treaty indicates that we will coordinate, cooperate, and do joint actions, joint policies, etc., in a number of areas, including on matters related to the sea. So in terms of our assistance to our member states, we provide assistance in terms of capacity building to deal with challenges of pollution related to the sea. And so that brings into perspective the waste management aspect. What we have found is that there has been many assistance, I would say, from partners, etc., coming in to try to build capacity in the countries in the form of what we call pilots. These pilots come in and they look at the technical aspect of what's going on in terms of waste management and try to provide some assistance in terms of waste separation. But many of these pilots just focus on the technical aspects. So just looking at waste separation. Once the pilot is over, everything goes back to normal. So you've set up a system where you're probably separating plastics, and there's a little system where it exports. And as Carla mentioned, that's an extremely expensive venture. So once the project is done, the activity is over. So from our perspective, we are looking to realize economies of scale. And so we had a project with support from AFD and the EU that looked at developing a model for our region. And that model focuses on 5 pillars. The first pillar is really the technical pillar, which really defines the how. How are you going to separate that waste? And it can be applied to any waste stream. It's not only plastics. So how are you going to do this? What systems are you going to put in place? And the other pillar looks at, based on what you've indicated that you can put in place to enable things like waste separation and collection, what's the economic plan for that? Well, how much is that going to cost you? And then looking at things like the financial plan, developing a financial plan, and then looking at your regulations, looking at your laws. Will it support that system? And then you adjust those accordingly. And of course, the last pillar, our 5th pillar, is always communications, which is really cross-cutting to ensure that people are understanding of the actions and are compliant of it. So to get to your question, what are the challenges? The challenges are that these are small islands with very limited capacity to deal with the amount of waste being produced. The amount of waste may appear to be quite a lot, but it is really not a lot when it comes to creating a business out of it. It doesn't make business sense to go in that direction from one island perspective. It's really not financially sustainable, etc. So we're trying to encourage a regional approach. And for that regional approach to work, we must have recovery rate of the recyclables on each of the islands increase. Right now, it's below 5%, 0 to 5% in each of these islands. And we'd need at least 80 to 90% for it to make business sense at a regional level. Carla alluded to a point that is the other challenge, finding a market to take on these recyclables. Again, the export is really high. Right now, under that project, we had to recycle to Honduras. We're an archipelago that forms the eastern border of the Caribbean Sea. So we have to literally ship across the Caribbean to Honduras. That's extremely expensive. There's no profit made. No investor is going to invest in something of that nature. However, there are possibilities and potentials within the region closer afield. Trinidad is looking at a possibility of establishing a recycling plant, mainly for plastics in that nature. So there is that possibility. For the islands themselves, a lot of the waste, maybe 35 to 45% of the waste, is organics. So it's an opportunity to use that organics, focus on these countries to really separate the organics and reduce the amount of waste going into the landfills, even if you can't address the plastics at this point in time. So that is one of our focuses as well. But again, the capacity in terms of manpower, the capacity in terms of finances, extremely hard. You must address the national level, that's a challenge, before the regional approach can be taken.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello, everyone. In the French Overseas territories, there are also a landscape issue with waste. And actually, all the dump sites are close to saturation in the French Overseas territories. So it's crucial to develop waste sorting To date, at least 40% of the household waste residuals are packaging. So it's a real emergency and a real need on these territories. Waste collect arrived later in these territories than mainland France. In mainland France, it was at the end of the 90s, and in these territories, it was 2010, at the end of 2010. So there need to be more containers. There's a lack of containers in these territories, so we have to improve the collect system first to catch all the plastic package on the waste. And there is also some difficulty with isolated area. For example, in the French Guiana, at least 10% of the population live in villages which are not connected to the roadmap network. So we have to find logistic solution with boat, with flight to carry the waste until we can sort them and export them. You already said that there a lack of recovery plants on the territories because there is not enough packaging tons to build such plants. And there are a lot of export. And you said export costs a lot, but there is kind of paradox. For example, it's more expensive to send ship containers from French Guiana to Martinique than to send the same ship containers to French Guiana to main France. So today, at least 80% of the packaging waste are exported to mainland France to be recycled. In fact, in French territories, except glass packaging, which are crushed on the territory to be used on different kind of works, everything is exported. So we have to work how to collect more, how to maybe improve the cost of transport, and also work on the regulation, because with the Basel Convention, it's very difficult to send waste from different territories on the same geographical area. So that's why it's quite difficult today to find local plants to recover package. And to conclude, one of the most important things, I already said that, but it's how you can talk to people, how to learn people about why it's important to sort waste and what we can do with that and what are the benefits. So it's a pretty long road to go.
So now, to get your perspective as well from the Indian Ocean Commission, Mayotte and La Réunion are part of the Commission as well. You've got a regional and broader perspective. Could you share a bit what your ongoing projects and how do you manage what are the most pressing challenges for the Commission?
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. So the Indian Ocean Commission is an intergovernmental composed by 5 member states, La Réunion for France, Madagascar, Mauritius, Seychelles, and Comoros. Okay, thank you. Yeah. I said, so the Indian Ocean Commission have 5 member states, and the Secretary General is mandated by its member states to promote the regional cooperation on various thematics as the waste management and circular economy. And to remind that the Ministerial Conference on Blue and Circular Economy of the Island States of Africa and the Indian Ocean on September 2023 committed to reduce the waste to zero waste on 2030. So now we are on 2025. I don't know where we are in this perspective, but the current situation of waste management or circular economy of the 5 IOC member states, as I said, represent a mixed picture. We know that La Réunion is at an advanced stage of development due to the application of the EU standards and as a French overseas territory. Mauritius and Seychelles have circular economy roadmaps and waste management frameworks in place, but have not yet started to implement like the EPR at the national level. And for Comoros and Madagascar, they have just waste management frameworks placed, but are at initial stage in initiating circular economy activities. So the idea is to opt for a regional approach like regional EPR, but we know that it's not as easy as well as you mentioned, like all around the transport and everything, regulatory issues. But we are still convinced that this regional EPR scheme is the best option for our region. Thank you, Axel.
Thanks, Tiana. From Nicolas' perspective, with expertise France, so you've got a large area of interventions. Could you share a bit about the main challenges that you are facing for island territories?
Yes, thank you, Axel. I would say that island states are facing the unique combination of challenges, and as part we are working with also continental countries. We can say that it's a really a different perspective we have to adopt with these territories. A lot have been said, of course, but we can talk about the policy gaps, also the limited infrastructures, for sure the dependence of the imports, but also we have to say that we have natural disasters in these territories also that complexify a lot all the management, the waste management that we have, and of course the cost of it has been mentioned of the waste export, because it's not only an issue, an environmental issue, but it's also very economically complicated for these countries. So what we say, of course, what we see that at national level we have already a lot of challenges, and we are working mainly at national levels, or most of it, to reduce, including single-use plastic production and utilization in these territories. So we have a project in Sri Lanka, for example, working in reducing single-use plastic. We have projects in the Caribbean with the Resembrid program, for example, which is working with Aruba and Curacao, for example, in this kind of issues also of reducing the use of plastic. But if I would select only one challenge and one main challenge for these territories, I would say, and I would go in favor of what has been said. It's the regional cooperation. Of course, it looks a bit basic, but when we talk about marine litter, we don't know where it's going to land. So it's obviously a regional problem, a regional issue. We have to admit that the regional cooperation is still a bit difficult. A lot of organizations, and we support IORA, for example, in the Indian Ocean. We support ASEAN in Asian countries to work about fight against plastic also, and we work also with a lot of regional organizations to support them. But we have to say that it's difficult to find an alignment, and we have many complexities in this topic. So I would say that that's the main challenge for us, to make the country work together.
And given these obstacles and challenges, to follow more on that one, like how do you ensure like lasting impact on these projects and interventions?
We try to work, we are a public agency, we are part of AFD Group and an implementing agency, so what we try to do is to work on public policies. We think that's, of course, what can last, so we try to translate, for example, the European regulation in the use of single-use plastics, for example, in the country where we work. We try also to give a lot of technical assistance and technical cooperation to the local stakeholders, and try to build on the local stakeholders, because and the private sector is supported already by local governments, but we try to help them also, trying to emerge some pilot projects, for example, to see that it's possible to reduce also the single-use production.
So it's part of a package, then it's like an institutional setup, public policies, to be sure as well we've got the waste treatment maritime rule and so on. To go back to the EPR point, like Nicolas, how do you like adapt the system itself between metropolitan area and other territories?
Maybe just to remind the EPR system, or it's okay for everyone. So the EPR system.
The extended producer responsibility.
The extended producer responsibility. It means that all the company who put on the market packaging have to contribute to take the end of life of this packaging. So in fact, all the companies has to contribute, and there are scale to pay depends the material you use for your package, and it's the same rate if you're a French company or if you're a company which is abroad. It's the same price. But for the overseas territories, we have to help more these territories. We have to pay for investment or of works, and that's why we help local authorities in developing projects of collect of waste sorting. We work with a company to help them to reduce the packaging. When I said reduce, is how you can use less material for your packaging, or you can change material to choose a material which is better recyclable. And we work a lot with operators. For example, we finance waste sorting operation on the island to put the service in all the territories. And the UPR is a frame which can provide benefits on all the subjects. It's waste collect, waste sorting, it's fight against littering, it's how you can develop out of home disposal in the city, and how you can help, for example, a reuse loop. In Martinique, we are on a project where we can find all the different actors to build a loop with glass containers. So it's a first step, but it will be very interesting on island place with small markets. And we also work on the recovery system. As I said, the objective is to collect more and to find how we can build plans for recovery on these territories. So EPR disposal allowed to implement all the stakeholders. It was the operators, it's local authorities, it's startup, and with all this partnership, we can go on and hope to have success on these territories.
Thanks, Nicolas. So it's really like a proxy in order to put in place circular economy policy in practice. Okay, great. Susanna, maybe to get as well your outcomes from the project currently running.
I actually just wanted to say something on EPR. When we talk the EPR, we're talking extended producer responsibility. And so placing that responsibility on the producer, for us in small islands, they tend to shift that responsibility onto importers because we don't have the major producers in our countries. And this has an impact on the consumer itself, and this can really impact the cost of food. So we have to really be careful how we apply EPR to countries. One of the points on EPR, there are different aspects of it, but in times of disaster, levies on plastic products, etc., are not placed on disaster materials, not disaster, but relief materials coming into the countries. So if we have a hurricane that comes into an island, passes through an island, causes some devastation, and there's hurricane relief products coming in, like plastic bottles of water, etc., the levies don't apply to these. And we had a case in one of our countries, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who has a system in place where there's a levy on plastic bottles, returnable containers system. But after there was an issue with a volcanic eruption and there was major relief coming into the islands, many of the relief that came in, it really didn't have that levy applied to it because it's coming in as a hurricane relief. And so we had to find other funds to really apply the funds to get incentives for persons to return these bottles to get them out of the system so that they didn't end up in the environment. So it still has its little quirks, and you have to try to figure out how you can adjust something like an EPR to really fit the circumstances of SIDS.
It's been perfectly the link with Carla regarding the regional EPR visions, regarding the main obstacles to implement EPR and the safeguard measures for those to be have a big impact.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Axel. Yeah, thanks, Susanna, as well. That links pretty well with the the work that we're doing at Common Seas. It's we through our work, sort of working with our government partners to analyze and model the different interventions that could work in SIDS. We did come across this view, that this kind of unethical view, actually, that extended producer responsibility in the case of small island states doesn't really target the producer, and even they're still grappling with the challenge of small volumes in remote locations, and oftentimes no producers on island. So the fees will fall onto small importers, who often themselves are very limited in what they can import because of their small market and the small volumes that they're importing. So the result of this kind of traditional view of EPR is that the fees coming in are too small to cover the end-of-life management of the waste that is needed. So, that being said, I think at Common Seas anyway, we still think that EPR holds promise. It's been identified as the only kind of proven pathway for sustainable finance. And sustainable finance, as we know, is really important, especially in the case of small island states. As Susanna mentioned, they're needing to rely on this kind of short-term grant and donor funding, which we know is coming under threat and also is very kind of insecure at the moment. So finding ways to develop mechanisms for sustainable finance is really important. So it's not so much about the benefits of EPR, it's more, like Susanna mentioned, about how we can adapt it and align it to the needs and the circumstances of the SIDS themselves. So at Common Seas, we're trying to do this. We're exploring how taking a regional approach to EPR could help with that alignment. So how can we actually target the producers that are operating more at the regional level and collect funds at this regional level that could support financially coordination between islands to aggregate waste, to support unlocking those economies of scale that are needed in order to realize the those end markets that are currently really difficult to access on a country by country basis. So to develop this framework, this kind of regional model, we are working with an expert working group. Axel knows this very well. We're very happy to have him on board. But otherwise, we have pretty good representation across the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the Indian Ocean as well. And we'll be launching a report on this kind of regional framework for EPR later this year. And we'll be exploring questions like, how can we fairly allocate fees across the islands? How can we ensure good governance of the system? And how can we ensure the enforcement, which of course is always a real challenge, without being too burdensome? So we're really encouraged by the work with the OECS, for example, the Recycle OECS model, and also the Indian Ocean Commission, and your sort of vision for this regional scheme. So we're hoping and looking forward to sort of putting our research to the test and seeing how to bridge this kind of theoretical concept that we're building to the practical implementation in these regions. So hopefully watch this space.
Thanks, Carla. Tiana, maybe in practice to get your view regarding this regional EPR approach for the Indian Ocean Commission, like how do you build bridges between the island models to endorse this vision?
Yeah, so a roadmap to support the implementation of this regional approach for tire waste and packaging waste was proposed. And as the IOC is mandated to mobilize resources and partnership for its implementation. Right now, few steps are agreed. First of all, to set up this regional EPR steering group for knowledge exchange and harmonized implementation. So this regional EPR steering group is integrated into the regional waste value chain, public and private platform, and is part of the African Indian Ocean Island State Circular Economy Expert Group, and will agree on tasks they wanted to undertake during the next years. But this the important uh, one step is to cover, understanding the current waste management situation in the region, harmonizing approach in the region across the island state, including the definition of a common taxonomy in their EPR legislation. That is very important to undertaken. Getting also a better understanding of waste management situation in different island states, including the baseline data on waste management, mapping recycling infrastructure and options to understand the cost structure related to the treatment, the viability of such export pathways, and the role and responsibility of an eventual regional. We talk about the producer responsibility organization.
Terrific. Thanks a lot, Jana. The time is running out. I would just ask you one word, not one sentence, one word to summarize what we need to do within 5 years to strengthen collaborations between islands and waste management. Jana, you need to start with that one. In one word, then, please.
I was going to say collaboration, but that seems quite obvious. But I'll say collaboration.
Partnerships.
3R.
Partnerships. I wanna talk about alliance.
Innovation.
Innovations, great. Innovations, collaborations, cooperations, 3R, partnerships. Terrific. Hope we will gather all together within 5 years to be able to be sure that we have achieved all these intentions. Thanks to all of you, and see you around.
Thank you to all our panelists, and actually thank you to all the participants in this session. We had some words on the transition to circularity and waste management on land at the beginning. We then talked about the transfer in aquatic environments, and finished by this case of the small island states, which exacerbates these issues in a very small territory. We can conclude that to effectively combat marine pollution, the most sustainable action or investment is to implement the hierarchy of actions of the circular economy, which starts with refuse, rethink, and is followed by a dozen of other R's that finish with recycling and final disposal, safe final disposal of wastes. Even if the final disposal of wastes comes in last, it doesn't mean that in the temporality of action, it's the last thing to do. Implementing safe final disposal of waste is needed to control pollution triggered by wastes, and it's also needed to minimize waste generation, because it's needed to provide the knowledge needed to start taking action on how to retrieve value from this waste, but also how to reduce its generation when we cannot extract value from it. Waste management, or I should say environmentally sound management of wastes, as defined by the Basel Convention, is a necessity. It responds to the urgent need to deal with waste in a better way. But we cannot limit our action to this, to just dealing with waste. We also need to reduce the generation, because we cannot afford to continue producing so much. Waste management as a cost, we heard it several times in this session. It has an infrastructure cost, and it has an environmental costs through the impact it has. But it's also Another reason why we cannot afford it is that the linear use of our resources is depleting the stocks. So we need to throttle the tap. Reducing waste generation is complicated. It brings several challenges. There's a human challenge, the pushback, the fear of changing, not knowing what we will get, but knowing what we will lose. There's a structural challenge. We need to change the ways we're doing things, the types of jobs, the industrial ecosystems, and even the way we plan our national budgets. And finally, there is an investment challenge. We need to make sure that the future investments actually drive the transition and avoid perpetuating the actions which in the end trigger the depletion of resources and increase the pollutions. This sequence is ending, and we will now hear about the Clean Ocean Initiative Phase 2, which is about earmarking financing towards these types of actions. So thank you very much to all.